he was encouraged to go west, till everybody was absolutely rolling in their eyes. People used to love Frank Randle. A lot of the stuff he did was northern in character. They sort of identified themselves with what Frank was doing.
I suppose the most important star of John Lecter's films was Frank Randle.
And Frank was never a star in the South because he didn't appeal to the Southerners, you said. Then Frank got old Birmingham, he was gone.
You'd be waiting for Frank Randle to come onto the set. He would be maybe an hour late. Everybody would be hanging around doing nothing, just waiting. And as soon as he walked onto the set, you get John Blake, he would turn around and say, right, break for lunch. And of course Frank would storm off in a bit of a panic.
He was lecherous, he was insubordinate, he was drunken. A friend of mine who saw him on the stage said, "Oh, Frank Randle, he was a dirty old man. He used to take his teeth out and throw them into the stalls." Well, that kind of thing can't be taken up by the mainstream film industry and made into a national image. And the thing that Randle did, and the reason he was popular with his own following, was that he emphasised those traits in the characters of ordinary people, which are generally suppressed. Well, you can't imagine this being a respectable image that could be purveyed in feature films, or indeed later on even in television. Now, dear old George, on the other hand, George Formby, was basically just an overgrown urchin. And he used to go around with his little catchphrases, "Ooh, mother," and "Aha, never touch me." And so it was childlike and innocent, whereas Randle really was subversive. He was an anti-hero. But what's ironic is, and evidence about this has recently come to light, Randle became in time more popular even than Formby in the north of England. A researcher at Manchester Polytechnic, Julian Poole, has turned up the attendance figures for one Macclesfield cinema for the 1940s. And these figures do seem to me to be representative of the north as a whole. And what he's found is that in 1942, Randle's film Somewhere in Camp attracted more people than any other film, British or American, with the single exception of Mrs. Miniver. And in 1943, Somewhere on Leave attracted more people than any other single film apart from Holiday Inn. And I think this is a lot to do with the war. People wanted to laugh during the war, and they also wanted to laugh in a way which punctured authority. A lot of people were in the services, a lot of people were having to be subject to orders and authority and discipline. And here was Randle kicking it all over. And it was a marvellous escape valve for people, and I think that's what they valued Randle for.
And if you take somebody like Frank Randle, who was, an anarchist, really, in comedy. I mean, he was always fighting authority, whether it was on the stage or in films, and beating it. And there was this idiot who could beat authority. And I'm sure that, really, the audiences did identify very much with that. You know, if he can do it, we've got a chance. I always remember my father's definition of a great comic. He said a great comic is not a man who says funny things. He's a man who says things funny. And I think the northern comic said things funny. I think the basic difference was that the southern comic was clever and would tell you how he beat someone, how he put one over on them. Whereas the northern comic would tell you about all the terrible things that happened to him. This, of course, meant that the northern comic got a lot of sympathy from the audience. The other thing, I think, is that, in general, they were funny men, the northern comics, rather than being witty, clever.